Vedanta cosmopsychism. I think it's not working. Can you hear me? I think the mic is not working. Hello? Okay, so I won't use it. Hello? Okay, that's right. All right. So this is still a work in progress. So any critical comments and feedback are most welcome. And I begin by pointing out that the growing interest in analytic philosophy, in how Indian traditions and thinkers engage with issues of consciousness, reflect a deep concern with categorization. For instance, most, if not all, interpretations of realist Indian traditions are framed through the lens of cosmopsychism. They're either classified as cosmopsychist or brought into dialogue with analytic cosmopsychism. This raises a crucial question. What kind of cosmopsychism, if any, is present in a given Indian tradition or thinker? This issue is important for several reasons. First, the label cosmopsychism is often applied without clear justification. Implicit in this classification is the assumption that what certain Indian traditions regard as the ultimate reality aligns with what analytic philosophers call the cosmos. However, to determine the kind of cosmopsychism at stake, or whether a given tradition should be considered cosmopsychism at all, a minimally precise definition of cosmos is essential, something that is often overlooked. Second, addressing this question should shed light on the metaphysical commitments of these traditions and thinkers, which in turn affects their feasibility as solutions to the philosophical challenges associated with cosmopsychism. In this talk, I will present a general model that includes a definition of the cosmos, which I argue serves as framework for some monist realist Vedanta traditions, often labeled as cosmopsychism. Specifically, I will examine two Vedanta traditions, Ramanuja Visheshadvaita Vedanta and Jiva Goswami's Bheda Vedanta, and a Vedanta text, the Bhagavad Gita. I will then briefly explore the implications of this model for two key issues, the decombination problem and the causal exclusion problem. While my interpretations of Ramanuja and Jiva broadly align with the standard scholarly consensus, many of my conclusions are shaped by my own theoretical choices. My analysis of the Gita builds on a recent paper of mine in which I reconstruct its cosmopsychism model. Finally, a note on terminology. A mental property refers to any state of mind. This includes states such as belief, desire, and will, as well as conscious states, ways of experiencing that are distinguished by what it is like to have them. A conscious subject, it is the bearer of conscious properties. It is a thing for whom there is something that is like to be that thing. I will treat 6 Sanskrit terms like Atman and Jiva, often translated as soul or individual self, as at least coextensive with the term conscious subject. So let me begin. As we know, Vedanta models in schools investigate the nature of ultimate reality, Brahma, and its relationship with the physical world and conscious subjects. Brahma is understood as conscious and, in some sense, as consciousness itself. Most of these schools, apart from Shankara's Advaita Vedanta, which is a notable exception, adopt a realist perspective. They assign some degree of reality to the physical world and conscious subjects, and establish an ontological distinction between them and Brahma. To different degrees, realist Vedanta schools rely on two key theses. First, that Brahma encompasses and, in an important sense, is the entirety of reality. Second, that there is an ontological continuity extending from Brahma to everything else. This second thesis is closely tied to the idea that conscious subjects are amshas, parts of Brahma, and that the physical world is a real parinam, transformation of Brahma. This idea suggests that everything apart from Brahma itself ontologically depends on Brahma. What differs from school to school are the answers to two fundamental questions. First, what is the nature of Brahma? And two, how should the ontological dependencies of the world and conscious subjects on Brahma be characterized? Both Ramanuja and Jiva assign a strongly personal character to ultimate reality, offering similar answers to the first question, though with significant differences. Ramanuja identifies Brahman with Vishnu Narayana, the Supreme Person, Purushottama, gifted with several divine properties. Jiva uses the term tattva to refer to ultimate reality, which he describes as non-dual, advaya consciousness. The highest manifestation of tattva is Bhagavan, the one who possesses all bhaga, divine excellences, whom Jiva explicitly identifies as Vasudeva Krishna. In Krishna, who, from a broad perspective, is the same divine entity as Vishnu, all forms of Shakti, divine powers, glories, or properties are fully manifest. From a theistic perspective, in the Bhagavad Gita, the ultimate reality is also Krishna, the speaker of the text, who is referred to as Param Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, and Bhagavan. Thus, in all three cases, ultimate reality, is Saguna with qualities. More than that, it is a conscious subject who, from a first-person perspective, instantiates not only conscious properties, but also other mental properties, such as thought, belief, and will. For the second question, which strongly impacts the first, Ramanuja describes the relationship between Brahma, the world, and conscious subjects in terms of Vishesha Vishesha and Prakara Prakari, which refer to the ultimate substract and its inseparable properties or modes. The world and conscious subjects are Vishesha of Brahma, who is Vishesha, the possessor of Vishesha. Just as a property cannot exist independently of its substratum, the world and conscious subjects cannot exist apart from Brahma. There are modes, prakara of Brahma, who is prakari, the ultimate qualified whole or substratum. The relationship, however, is more intimate than it might appear. It is one of inseparability. The world and conscious subjects are parts, amsha, of Brahma. For Jiva, the world and conscious subjects are different kinds of Shakti, divine powers, of Bhagavan, who is thus called Shaktiman, the possessor of Shakti. The conscious subjects that exist in the world are Bhagavan's marginal, Tatastha Shakti, often described by Jiva as parts, Amsha of Bhagavan. The physical world, on the other hand, is associated with the external, Bahiranga Shakti, also known as Maya Shakti, which includes the material stuff that transforms into the physical world. Bhagavan Shakti is intrinsic to his very nature. Just as the sun and its rays are inseparable, Bhagavan Shaktis are equally inseparable from Bhagavan, ontologically depending on him. The difference between Tatastha Shakti and Maya Shakti is analogous to the difference between the rays of the sun and its reflection on the surface of the water. While the reflection depends on the sun, it does not share luminosity, the essential quality of the sun. Similarly, despite being a Shakti of Bhagavan, the physical world, unlike conscious subjects, does not share Bhagavan's essential quality, which is consciousness. For the Gita, in its 7th chapter, Krishna describes himself as the possessor of Prakriti, or Prakritiman, a term which I will use even though it does not appear in the Gita. It should be clear. He explains that the 8 elements that constitute the physical world are his inferior, apara Prakriti, while conscious subjects are his superior, para Prakriti. The term Prakriti is used here somewhat unorthodoxly. It is employed relationally, in a kind of unsaturated term way. To be Prakriti is to be Prakriti of something, to be part of a whole. This is further supported in chapter 15, where conscious subjects are described as Krishna's amsas. This sense of the term Prakriti is recognized, for instance, by Knut Jacobsen in his book Prakriti in Sankhya Yoga, and I elaborate on that in my paper. But the verses also reflect a more traditional sense of the word Prakriti. It suggests that Krishna's Prakriti belonged to his own nature, which is a standard translation of the term Prakriti. All this indicates both ontological dependency and intimacy, though the nature of this intimacy differs between the two kinds of Prakriti. Krishna describes his inferior Prakriti as Bina, separated, which suggests a sense of distance. Of course, there are significant differences between these 3 notions, Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti, as used by Ramanuja, Jiva, and the Gita, respectively. However, there are important similarities. First, all these concepts involve a sense of intimacy, of proximity between the Vishesha and Vishesha, Shakti and Shaktiman, and Prakriti and Prakritiman. Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti are inseparable from the respective Vishesha, Visheshya, Shaktiman, and Prakritiman, belonging to their very nature. Second, there is a connection between these notions and the concept of attribute or property, not in the sense of a universal, but more akin to tropes. This is particularly evident in the case of Ramanuja, who uses the term Vishesha, commonly translated as attribute, property, or quality. Like a property, a Vishesha serves as a qualifier, distinguishing it from other things. Moreover, like a property, a Vishesha is possessed by something. The same can be said about terms Shakti and Prakriti. Moreover, the existence of the several kinds of Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti ontologically depends on Visheshya, Shaktiman, and Prakritiman as their locus. Like properties, they form the very aspects that constitute Visheshya, Shaktiman, and Prakritiman as a qualifying unit. However, unlike how we ordinarily conceive properties, the several kinds of Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti encompass entities that we would typically classify as substances, such as conscious subjects and concrete objects, each possessing its own properties or qualities. In themselves, Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti function as substances, in a minimal sense of the term. They bear properties, they are ontologically individuated, and they persist through time. Yet, in relation to Visheshya, Shaktiman, and Prakritiman, they behave like properties. Thus, Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti show a dual nature, as substances in themselves and as properties in relation to their respective loci. Third, the concept of Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti can be understood as proper parthood concepts. To clarify this, I'll have to discuss the view known as priority monism and provide a minimally precise definition of the concept of cosmos. For this, I refer to Jonathan Schaffer's 2010 paper, which is entitled Monism, the Priority of the Whole, and also to David Chalmers' contribution on idealism and the mind-body problem, which appeared in the Routledge Handbook of Panpsychism, which was published in 2020. So priority monism. So priority monism is basically the view that the cosmos is ontologically prior to its proper parts, even though those parts exist as distinct entities. This implies that everything ontologically depends on the cosmos, whereas the cosmos itself does not depend on anything else. It seems obvious that a clear formulation of this thesis requires a minimally precise definition of the concept of cosmos. The word cosmos is usually used to refer to the whole of reality, the totality of all actual entities, everything that is. In accordance with this and generalizing from a definition given by Schaffer, I define cosmos simply as the totality of all actual concrete objects. The elements of this definition can be explained as follows. First, by X being the totality of objects of a domain D, I mean first that X is a maximal object of which all members of D are proper parts, and second, that X is not identical with any plurality of members of D. This second requirement is based on the thesis that composition is not the same as identity. Second, a proper part of X is a part of X which is not identical with X. And third, following Chalmers, I take concreteness as involving both physicality and mentality, but exclude abstract domains such as mathematics. So a concrete object is an object that instantiates physical or mental properties. So my definition of concrete object encompasses physical objects, that is, concrete objects that instantiate physical properties, or what I have referred to so far as the physical world can be understood as the totality of all actual physical objects. But it also encompasses human beings and other animals who instantiate both physical and mental properties, and possibly also encompasses disembodied minds, that is, objects which instantiate only mental properties. What I have referred to so far as conscious subjects are better understood as macro-conscious subjects, that is, non-maximal concrete objects that instantiate a special kind of mental property, namely experiential properties. This, of course, does not exclude the possibility that they also instantiate other mental and physical properties. This definition of the cosmos introduces key difference between my view of priority monism and Schaffer's, making my approach more general. First, following Chalmers, I incorporate mentality into the definition of concreteness. Second, while Schaeffer treats ontological dependence as a grounding, constitutive relation, I adopt a broader perspective that accommodates other forms of ontological dependence, including emergentist relations. Third, this definition allows for non-spatial interpretations of proper parthood. While parthood is traditionally understood in spatial terms, I intentionally leave that open. Here, cosmos refers to the totality of all actual concrete objects, regardless of how proper parthood is defined. Traditionally, proper parthood is interpreted spatially. In this case, the cosmos is the maximal object of which all actual concrete objects are spatial proper parts. I refer to that as the concrete cosmos. Trivially, under this interpretation, the cosmos is identical to the concrete cosmos. Taking spatiality and physicality as coextensive, the cosmos is also identical to the physical world. On page 2 of the handbook, there's a simplified diagram that might help you to make sense of all that diagram. But as I mentioned, my definition of cosmos allows for proper parthood to be interpreted in a non-spatial way. From the perspective of priority monism, a minimal understanding of proper parthood is one in which any entity that ontologically depends on the cosmos and, two, is an entity on its own can be considered as a proper part of the cosmos. The concepts of Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti align with this definition of proper parthood. Furthermore, as previously mentioned, the term amsha, meaning portion or part, is used in connection with the three concepts. Thus, from a broad perspective, these concepts are meteorological concepts. The ultimate reality is the whole, and its several kinds of Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti are its proper parts. A consequence of that is that from these three concepts of proper parthood, we can derive three distinct yet intimately related definitions of the cosmos. For Ramanuja, the cosmos is Vishesha, the ultimate reality in relation to which all actual concrete objects are Vishesha. For Jiva, Shaktiman, the object in relation to which all actual concrete objects are Shakti. And for the Gita, Prakritiman, the object of which all actual concrete objects are Prakriti. Applying these definitions of cosmos to our definition of priority monism gives us three distinct, again, related priority monispheres. In the lack of a better term, I would call this Monism Realist Vedanta priority monism, or MRV, priority monism for short. In MRV priority monism, the cosmos is distinct from the concrete cosmos. In fact, the concrete cosmos is a proper part of the cosmos. The concrete cosmos is a Vishesha Shakti or Prakriti of the cosmos. Moreover, given the assumption common in Vedanta of disembodied minds, the concrete cosmos differs from the physical world, which is also Vishesha Shakti or Prakriti of the cosmos. But these are also cosmopsyche spheres. From a minimal point of view, cosmopsychism is the thesis that the cosmos instantiates conscious or experiential properties. Combining this with priority monism gives us priority cosmopsychism. In priority cosmopsychism, the cosmos is a cosmic conscious subject that is a maximal concrete object that instantiates conscious properties. Since in MRV, priority monism, the cosmos is a conscious subject, it thereby entails a form of priority monism, which I refer to as MRV cosmopsychism. See that in MRV cosmopsychism, the cosmos instantiates not only conscious properties like traditional forms of cosmopsychism, but other mental states as thought, belief, and will. Another important issue is whether the relationship between the cosmic subject and its parts in MRV cosmopsychism is one of grounding or emergence. While an emergentist interpretation could explore the fact that the Vishesha Shakti and Prakriti of the cosmic subject are inseparable from it and belong to its very nature, it strongly suggests a grounding relationship. It seems to entail that the parts of the cosmos, including macro-conscious subjects, such as humans and other animals, are not entities over and above the cosmos itself. On the other hand, the fact that some Vishesha Shakti and Prakriti of the cosmos are substances suggests a strong form of individuation. For instance, we can distinguish between the superior and inferior Prakriti, between the several kinds of Shakti, and between conscious and unconscious Visheshas. Regarding conscious concrete objects in particular, these kinds of Vishesha Shakti and Prakriti are fully individual and individuated macro-conscious subjects, each with its own subjective perspective and structured conscious experience. This points to a distinctive type of grounding relation, which I will explore shortly. One might argue that the doctrine of Parinamavad suggests an emergentist interpretation, but Parinamavad does not necessarily entail an emergentist view. For instance, according to Jiva, and I would say likely to the Gita, the world is a transformation of the ultimate reality only in an indirect sense. Rather than being a direct transformation of the ultimate reality itself, the world is a transformation or manifestation of Bhagavan's Maya Shakti. Here I'm speaking about Jiva specifically. Because of that, Jiva's view is commonly classified as Shakti Parinamavad. Okay, so to conclude, let me briefly explore the potential implications of this form of cosmopsychism for two key issues in the philosophy of consciousness: the causal exclusion problem and what I refer to as the general explanatory gap problem. I'm on page 3, sorry, of the handbook now. So the first problem concerns the question of how consciousness can have any causal influence without being redundant, if the physical world is causally closed, as many philosophers maintain. And the second asks how subjective experience can arise from anything other than itself without invoking an explicable leap. Framing the discussion in terms of these two problems is important, as many philosophers act as if the decombination problem, also known as the decomposition or individuation problem, is the sole challenge for cosmopsychism. This likely stems from the view that the explanatory gap problem and the causal exclusion problem are only relevant to physicalism and dualism, respectively. However, that's not the case. First, and most obviously, the decombination problem is a special case of the general explanatory problem. The decombination problem, can be framed as follows. How can a single, unified, and maximal cosmic conscious subject give rise to a plurality of individual conscious subjects, such as humans and other animals, each with its distinct perspectives and structured qualified experiences? Second, and that's my second point, depending on the specific kind of cosmopsychism being considered, it might also be subject to the causal exclusion problem. In particular, it might not be susceptible to the general solution offered by traditional cosmopsychist fields. In a recent paper entitled How Exactly Does Panpsychism Help Explain Consciousness?, Philip Goff argues that while emergentist forms of cosmopsychism face the causal exclusion problem, grounding or constitutive forms of cosmopsychism face the explanatory gap problem in the form of the decombination problem. He then proposes what he calls hybrid cosmopsychism, which holds that while macro-conscious subjects emerge from the cosmos, their experiential states are grounded in the cosmic experiential states. Mentioning Goff is important here because MRV cosmopsychism addresses these two problems in a way similar to Goff's hybrid cosmopsychism. Regarding the decombination problem, the solution emerges from the dual nature of the cosmos conscious over parts. In themselves, the Vishesha Shakti and Prakriti, corresponding to macro-conscious subjects, are substances possessing conscious properties. This makes them into individual subjects with distinct subjective perspectives and structured qualitative experience. In relation to the cosmos, macro-conscious subjects function as properties. Consequently, other properties, including qualitative states and experiential structures, are second-order properties, meaning that they are properties of a property. However, property possession is not transitive. Consider, for instance, this blue water bottle. The bottle possesses the property of having a particular shade of blue, and blue itself possesses the property of being a color. But this doesn't mean that the bottle possesses the property of being a color. Likewise, experiential properties, structures, and subjective perspectives remain unique to each macro-conscious subject and are not shared with the cosmos. In a sense, this resembles what would occur if macro-conscious subjects were emergent entities. But they are not. In MRV cosmopsychism, the individuation and substance-like nature of macro-conscious subjects are part of the very nature of the cosmos, a brute fact, we might say. This has an advantage over Goff's view, as it eliminates the need to postulate emergent fundamental laws. I believe it also offers an advantage regarding qualia transfer, which I won't have time to elaborate on here. Regarding the causal closure problem, let me first elaborate on how grounding-based forms of cosmopsychism typically address it. This approach relies on the assumption that the very facts about the cosmos that ground experiences of macro-conscious subjects also account for the causal closure of the world. This ensures that conscious properties can play a non-redundant causal role. For instance, in Chalmers' account of Russellian constitutive priority cosmopsychism, the cosmos possesses fundamental physical properties, perhaps distributional properties concerning the arrangement of matter in space-time, wave function properties, or something else, that are causally closed. While its Russellian part, the Russellian part of Russellian cosmopsychism, holds that the cosmos' experiential properties realize its physical properties by mirroring their structure and fulfilling their causal roles, its constitutive part maintains that the cosmos' experiential properties collectively constitute or ground the experiences of macro-conscious subjects, such as ourselves. Note that this relies on the assumption that the cosmos is identical to the concrete cosmos, which allows one to posit that it possesses causally closed fundamental physical properties. But in MRV cosmopsychism, the cosmos is different from the concrete cosmos. This issue extends not only to MRV cosmopsychism, but also to other Indian forms of cosmopsychism, as most, if not all, distinguish the cosmos or ultimate reality from the concrete cosmos. More than that, in many Indian traditions, it is at least questionable whether the ultimate reality possesses physical properties at all. In response, I would first point out that in MRV cosmopsychism, the physical world is a Vishesha Shakti, or Prakriti of the cosmos. Second, the relationship between the cosmos and its parts is one of grounding. The Vishesha Shakti and Prakriti of the cosmos are not completely different from the cosmos. Instead, they are constituted by and grounded in the cosmos itself. As a result of facts about the cosmos parts are grounded in, constituted by, or necessitated by facts about the cosmos. This framework allows me to sketch a Russellian-like solution, akin to Chalmers, within MRV cosmopsychism. This is just a sketch, and I begin by assuming that the way that facts about the physical world are grounded in facts about the cosmos is that the physical properties of the world, which are causally closed, are realized by a specific subset of the cosmos' experiential properties, which mirror their structure and fulfill their causal roles. I then assume that the experiential properties of macro-conscious subjects are likewise grounded in the same set of experiential properties of the cosmos. As a result, the experiential properties of macro-conscious subjects also mirror the structure and play the causal role of certain physical properties of the physical world. So in conclusion, to summarize what I have done so far, so first, through a definition of the concept of cosmos, I introduced a general model for monistic forms of Vedanta cosmopsychism, arguing that Ramanuja's Visheshadvaita Vedanta, Jiva Goswami's Vedaveda Vedanta, and the Gita fit within this framework. Central to this was the argumentation that first, the concepts of Vishesha, Shakti, and Prakriti involve a deep sense of intimacy with Vishesha, Shaktiman, and Prakritimam, respectively. Second, that they exhibit a dual character, functioning both as properties and as substances. And third, that they can be understood as proper partner concepts. While my focus was so circumscribed, I suspect that this model also may extend to other Indian traditions. I then briefly explored the implication of this model for two key philosophical issues, the combination problem, the causal exclusion problem, which of course remains preliminary and speculative. Thank you very much.